Ever get that feeling? Like, some things that just sound like, ugh, textbook dry. And then you realize they're hiding some seriously cool secrets.
But like finding buried treasure.
Right, exactly. That's how I felt about Priesthood Keys. But let me tell you, after digging into this, it's way more exciting than it sounds.
It's like uncovering hidden connections, wouldn't you say?
100%. We're talking directly relevant to your life, kind of exciting. Huge news from last month, kind of exciting.
Things prophesied long ago, woven into events happening right now.
Okay, so rewind with me to President Nelson's April 2024 conference talk.
Big news day.
Remember, the church purchased the Kirtland Temple. Now, I don't know about you, but growing up, Kirtland always felt kind of like way back then history to me.
It's understandable. Think about it. When President Nelson was born, there were only 6 operating temples.
Wow.
Today, we're approaching 200.
That just puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
But the Kirtland Temple, you see, it holds a unique place in our history.
Right. It wasn't just a building. It was this incredible hub of spiritual energy in the early church. But then came the forced exodus, the saints having to leave Kirtland behind. The temple, too.
And the Kirtland Temple took on a life of its own after that, eventually coming under the ownership of the Community of Christ.
Which makes the news of its purchase even more remarkable.
Remarkable is an understatement. This wasn't just a business deal. It was years of dialogue and collaboration.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the Kirtland Temple. The church purchased other significant sites in Nauvoo, too. But out of all the places, why the sudden focus on Kirtland?
Because this wasn't about reclaiming a historic site. What happened within those walls, particularly on one very significant Easter Sunday? Well, it's essential to the Latter-day Saint faith, to your faith moving forward.
You're really piquing my curiosity now. What was so special about Easter Sunday in Kirtland?
It was the day prophecy was fulfilled, the day heaven opened, and keys were restored that would change the course of the restoration forever.
Okay, so picture this. It's Easter Sunday, 1836. We're inside the Kirtland Temple.
Can you imagine it?
Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery are about to experience an Easter Sunday unlike any other.
To say the least.
No egg hunts, no chocolate bunnies.
Forget the Easter baskets.
Instead, they get divine visitors.
It's almost hard to comprehend, isn't it? But this day in the Kirtland Temple, pivotal. They set in motion a chain of events that continue to impact the lives of millions today.
So, who shows up to this Easter Sunday gathering?
Well, the guest list is pretty incredible, not your average Sunday brunch.
Right. I imagine it's not every day you have biblical heavy hitters just popping in.
But remember, these weren't just social calls. Each visitor, each one, had a specific purpose.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
It was all about restoring priesthood keys.
Priesthood keys, okay.
Divine authority. The authority to act in God's name.
Okay, so first up on this incredible Easter Sunday, we have, well, I guess you could say the ultimate guest of honor.
Jesus Christ himself.
Wow, talk about unforgettable. So what was the significance of Christ's visit? Was it just to say Happy Easter?
Oh, it was much, much more profound than that. Yeah. This was about formally accepting the Kirtland Temple as his house.
Wow.
A place where he could manifest himself to his people. Imagine the sacredness of that moment. To be in the presence of the resurrected Savior in a temple dedicated to him.
I can't even imagine. Okay, so Jesus Christ himself shows up. Who else is on the guest list?
Next, we have Moses, a figure synonymous with leading Israel out of Egypt, receiving the 10 Commandments.
So he's, kind of a big deal. What was his role at Kirtland?
Moses was there to confer upon Joseph Smith the keys for the gathering of Israel.
Okay.
And the return to the 10 tribes.
Wow.
These keys are essential. They empower the gathering of God's children from all over the world.
Uniting them.
Uniting them, yes, through covenants and blessings.
That's incredible. It connects this event in Kirtland to something, well, much bigger, a global effort that continues today. Okay, so after Moses, who comes next?
Just when you thought it couldn't get any more amazing, Elias appears.
Now, Elias is a figure, I think, shrouded in a bit of mystery for some. Can you refresh our memory on who he is?
Elias is a prophet who lived centuries before Christ. He's associated with restoring knowledge and authority.
Okay.
Related to the gospel, as it was revealed to Abraham. We'll delve deeper into that connection a little later.
This is like a, what do you call it, a who's who of biblical figures? But I have a feeling the best was saved for last, right?
You're right. Just as Joseph and Oliver are probably, I don't know, just trying to process everything that's already happened. In walks Elijah.
Okay, let me get this straight. Jesus Christ, Moses, Elias, and now Elijah, all in one day.
Quite the gathering.
Talk about an unforgettable Easter. But I have to ask, what was the significance of Elijah's visit? Why was he there?
Elijah's arrival. Monumental.
Yeah.
He was there to restore the sealing power.
Sealing power.
The authority to bind families together for eternity.
So this is what makes it possible for families to be sealed in temples.
Exactly.
Creating a link that extends beyond this life and into the eternities.
Eternity, yes.
It's just amazing to me how these events from 1836, from a time when the church was still, well, in its infancy, they have such a direct impact on our lives today.
It's incredible.
But I have to admit, I'm still a little fuzzy on the concept of priesthood keys. It's not like, they handed Joseph Smith a literal key, right?
You're right, it's not about a physical key.
Yeah.
These keys represent priesthood authority, the power to act in God's name.
Okay, so how should I think of this?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're appointed CEO of a company.
Okay, CEO, I can see that.
You don't get a special key to unlock the building,
Right.
but you do receive the authority to lead, to make decisions that impact the entire company.
So priesthood keys are less about, unlocking a door and more about having the authority to act, to bless, to guide.
Precisely. It's about divine authority, passed down in a direct line from Jesus Christ himself, beginning with Joseph Smith.
So you're saying that without these keys, our ability to access God's power and blessings would be, greatly diminished?
Absolutely. Things like temple ordinances, eternal families, even the structure of the church itself.
Yeah.
It all relies on these priesthood keys. They're not just some abstract theological concepts you see. They have very real implications for you and your family.
So it's not just about making this life better. It's about connecting us to God's power
Yes.
in a way that impacts our eternal future.
Exactly. And that brings us to something President Nelson emphasized in his talk: God's love.
God's love.
He highlighted 3 key pieces of evidence of that love: the gathering of Israel, the gospel of Abraham, and the sealing power.
Each of these is made possible through those keys restored in the Kirtland Temple.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack those a bit. The gathering of Israel. It's easy to think of that as some distant historical event.
But President Nelson made it clear that this gathering is happening now,
No.
all around us.
Yeah.
It's a testament to God's love, his desire to gather all his children,
Regardless, you're saying.
regardless of their background, their beliefs.
Okay. And the gospel of Abraham. How does that fit into this idea of God's love?
The gospel of Abraham is about covenants, promises, and blessings. And it extends to all of God's children, not just a select few. It's about creating a family linked together across generations through sacred ordinances.
And at the heart of that is the sealing power, the ability to bind families together for eternity.
The ultimate expression of God's love, making it possible for families to be together forever.
It's incredible to think that this power, this ability to connect with God and our families for eternity is available to us because of what happened in that little temple in Kirtland so many years ago. It connects us to something, much bigger than ourselves, wouldn't you say?
Infinitely bigger. And President Nelson doesn't just want us to understand this historically, he wants us to apply it to our lives today. He pointed us to the Kirtland Temple dedication prayer. It's in Doctrine and Covenants 109.
Okay, Doctrine and Covenants 109.
He said to use it as a guide.
It's like he's saying, look, this isn't just a nice story. Here's how it applies to you. I like that. So what does that prayer teach us about how to access these blessings? How do we make this real in our lives?
It outlines the extraordinary blessings of temple attendance. Promises for those who come seeking a closer connection to God. It speaks of receiving answers to prayers, experiencing personal revelation, finding comfort and strength to face life's challenges. It even talks about seeing ourselves, our potential, in a new light, aligning our hearts and minds with God's will.
I love that phrase President Nelson used, think celestial. What does that even mean, to think celestial?
It's about elevating our perspective, I think, seeing our lives through the lens of eternity.
It's about recognizing that we are not just physical beings, right?
Right. We are eternal beings with divine potential. And the temple, well, it helps us tap into that potential, to see ourselves as God sees us.
And that brings us to President Nelson's powerful call to action. He didn't just remind us of the Kirtland Temple's significance, did he? He announced 15 new temples. It's like he's saying, this isn't just about one building or one event in history. This is about making these blessings accessible to everyone, everywhere.
And that's where this all comes back to you. Because if President Nelson is right, and I believe he is, the temple is crucial. to navigating these latter days, finding peace, and coming closer to Christ.
So the question for all of us is this. What step will you take today to make the temple a more central part of your life? It's one thing to hear about it, but it's something else entirely to experience it for yourself.